You're between two dumbbells. I'm your host, Skip Hill. I'm bringing over 40 years of bodybuilding experience to the table, and I'm here today, as usual, with Dr. Marv, aka the educated meathead, and thankfully, he's bringing his big brain to the project. For each show, we posit a thought about training, exercise, or training methodology. Then we do a deep dive into the minutia. We might argue, debate, pull hair, or call each other names, but when the dust settles, we both decide if we would smash or pass. Today, we have a new segment we're going to introduce called Intimate Time with Dr. Marv and Skip. It'll be after the main topic. I'll explain more about it when I introduce the segment, but it should be a lot of fun. Another thing to add today that I think is important is we've decided that Dr. Marv and I want to give away some free stuff to you, the viewers. Free stuff. I know I like free stuff. You like free stuff, Dr. Marv?
Absolutely.
Every time you comment on the show on YouTube, you'll be included in a drawing at the end of each month to receive either a Team Skip t-shirt of your choosing from the teamskip.com store or Dr. Marv's online bodybuilding anatomy course. You know what? Let's just give them both. How about that? The winner gets both.
Twisting my arm, but fine.
Yes, every month. And you know what? I might even start adding maybe a 5-pound tub of Team Skip protein in there from True Nutrition, but not at first. I'm going to dangle that carrot kind of in front of everybody. Right now, Team Skip t-shirt, Dr. Marv's large brain online bodybuilding anatomy course. We'll announce the winners every month on our IG accounts, and we'll reach out to the winner via their YouTube account. Sound fair, Dr. Marv?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Today, I'm going to posit. You know what? Before I posit, I want to see that. Don't you have a video of just an over-the-top, take it and run with it? You know more about it than I do.
Yep. So Skip now has to deal with me sending him videos from competition footage when I'm helping at powerlifting and strongman, since that's not his world. So we talked about me being in the Arnold last week. Saturday, I went to one of my favorite meets of all time at Texas Iron Republic in Magnolia, Texas. It is about as hardcore and brutal as it gets. I want to show 2 videos and then discuss an all-time world record that was set. So let me show a video, and then I'm going to blow everybody's mind about what it went into this. So I worked with multiple folks, but this is one of the big boys that I have the honor of working with, and he and I are actually doing a squat seminar. And we're just going to let everybody watch this. This is a lifetime PR of 925 pounds raw.
And, you know, even if you're a hypertrophy guy and you're in bodybuilding, this is insane. And you don't even have the volume on. The emotion and the energy and intensity in that room is insane. If you've never been to a powerlifting meet, that's just warrior shit right there. They train through they have injury. You said they'll duct tape themselves. I mean, they will do things it's almost really no matter what. It reminds me of that comment that a NASCAR driver made. I'm going to put the pedal to the floor and I'm not going to let up until I see God or the checkered flag. That just gives me chills. That just says, you know what? No matter what, you're just not going to let up until it's done.
Yeah, so he's famous for the previous meet I helped him. He tore his oblique, like full tear. I did an emergency treatment, and then somebody grabbed a roll of duct taped up his abdomen, and he still pulled 800 from the floor.
That is insanity. You're just, and you know what? Let's be fair. You got to be a little off. Bodybuilders have to be off to do half the stuff they do with contest prep. But this is next level. Powerlifting is next level. I don't want to say dysfunction because I don't mean it in a bad way, but to make the point of how next level that psychological approach is, it's not even in the same stratosphere as bodybuilding.
Correct. So let me play this video. This is a 518-pound free barbell press. And then wait until I give the big story behind this. So this is not a lifetime PR, but when I tell you what this man did 3 weeks prior, The whole time I'm doing Hail Marys, praying he doesn't rip it off the bone. He and I had a conversation after. He's like, I had to be okay, convince myself it was okay if the pec tore off the bone.
Oh, man.
So 518 raw. Again, not the heaviest bench of the day, nor was the squat the heaviest of the day. Here's the kicker, folks. 3 weeks prior, he popped his left pec on a 500-pound bench press. So we had 3 weeks of a ton of treatment, a ton of OSHIT, and 3 weeks later, he still pressed 518 pounds, which is just mind-blowing. And then one other thing, shout out to Tyler, the gym owner there. He set an all-time world record of an 858-pound squat raw, and his body weight is 220.
Insane.
He also totaled over 2,100, which is up there, probably top 5 all time for that body weight.
Yeah, that's just crazy. I think it's important that the viewers know this, and they might start to see this now after we've got more than a handful of, episodes and shows out now. My focus is primarily on hypertrophy. I live in the bodybuilding world. I've been in the bodybuilding world for a long time. I know a little bit about powerlifting, obviously, because I'm involved with Elite FTS and I'm around these guys a lot. I'm also picked on, arguably bullied sometimes, but I take it, in stride because it's all kind of in fun and it's jabs. But the point is I do have a little bit of a background in the powerlifting, and you clearly do. That's in your wheelhouse. Not only obviously hypertrophy training is too, but the strongman powerlifting stuff is clearly in your wheelhouse. So it's going to be funny or interesting to see the demographic as the show grows. Where I thought originally started out, I'm like, oh yeah, this will all be about bodybuilding, people wanting to get huge and ripped. You know what? Maybe that'll be 50%. Maybe we're going to have a draw for strength athletes as well, because we're already being talked about. You're being approached at these competitions going, hey, we like the show. We don't know who that Skip guy is. Oh, yeah, we know he's with Elite FTS, but we don't know who he is. He's the bodybuilder guy for Elite FTS.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So, so that my one guy, that was Logan Varner. He owns Southside Elite Strength here in Houston. And I tell everybody, if you're a hardcore strength athlete, he doesn't know I'm doing this. That's the only gym you should be at. There's multiple 900-pound squatters, 500-pound benchers, 2,000 total raw guys and gals. One of my female patients, she squats well over 500, lifetime drug-free. Like, it's stupid, the numbers that are being put up.
And I think that's a pretty flattering statement, knowing the size of Houston. I mean, the square, that has to be one of the largest, most spread out. Okay.
The third largest.
I was thinking Jacksonville is up there too, I know. But I'd rather not go to Jacksonville. I'd much rather go to Houston than I would. Yeah. I remember driving through Houston to a cruise one time. I don't want to get sidetracked here, but to go to Galveston, and I'm not kidding when I say I thought it was roughly half the size of Texas. It took forever to get through. I don't know if it was just bad traffic or construction, but that is a very large metro area. So for that gym to stand out in all those gyms, and that's not soft country. That's hardcore.
Yeah, there's a multitude of amazing strength gyms. Yeah. Just in my area, in the Houston Bay Area, it's the only place to go to. But the gym we were at was amazing. There's others. Scarlet Barbell's amazing. I did the strongman meet there, 21st Street Barbell. So there, I'm not saying it's the only one, but where I'm at, it's the closest one where all the heavy hitters go to. Texas powerlifting's at another level. Powerlifting is a high school sport. They give scholarships for Texas, like, I had a high school kid pull 600.
And it's been that way for a while, from what I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not something
Texas
new.
They are on the cutting edge of strength.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I would have expected that maybe from Nebraska, corn-fed kids or anything else. But Texas, they've been doing that for a long time. I'm going to take this, chance, I guess, to segue or transition into our posit. I'm going to throw the posit. You okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right. I posit these 3 exercises, or the following 3 exercises, to be thrown directly in the trash, like manually, like an actual trash can, not I'm going to move them from my desktop down to the trash and then hear that, sound when it hits the trash. Chris will have fun with that one. And I'm going to go in this order specifically because I think number 1, at least of the 3, has the most value of the other 2 are just worthless. But the first one there are reasons. And I'm going to kick this first exercise out. I'm not going to give all three at once. I'm going to give the first one first, and that's dumbbell kickbacks. And my argument is this. I started training in the 80s, right around 84, because I was like 14. Maybe it was 83 because, I don't know, I was born in March. Point is, doesn't really matter. It was in there somewhere. Dumbbell kickbacks were like a staple. It was, we didn't have openers and closes. You just had, the exercises that you do for each muscle group. But it was a staple. If you didn't do, another staple was bench dips, quite frankly. But we didn't have a hammer strength dip machine, that sort of thing. You had a regular dip machine, but no assisted dip machines back then, at least that I was aware of. I trained at a YMCA. So dumbbell kickbacks, mechanically, it's weak in the bottom position, strong contraction in the top position, but arguably it's more of a rear delt move because the first thing that's going to fatigue is the rear delt from holding the upper arm parallel to the floor. And there's a ton of reasons why I hate it, but that's number one. Number two is usually, you see every now and then somebody will be doing them in the gym. And it's funny because the mechanics are horrible. It looks like a half hammer curl, half dumbbell row, because they've got one knee up on a bench, like the old school dumbbell rows like we used to, which no one does anymore with the knee up on the bench. But anyway, and then they're kind of, it's a half or a 1/3 curl, and then they're using a real heavy dumbbell. And of course, that's why they can't keep the upper arm parallel to the floor. I find it worthless these days because, something as simple as a cable press down, if you did the EMG, I haven't looked at them, but if you look at EMG studies, and I understand that they, there are variables there that don't always make that, the end all be all as far as whether an exercise is effective. But we didn't have those EMG studies back in, and the way to track that back in the 80s. And I'm sure they were doing kickbacks prior to the 80s. I just don't, when you get into the 70s, I was 5 and 9 and I wasn't training at that point. So I think they need to go in the trash because there are just far more effective ways. No one is going to do kickbacks these days and get big triceps. And arguably, they probably weren't then. It was just one exercise of 3 or 4, and the skull crushers. That moniker drives me nuts. I like lying tricep extensions over skull crushers. But nonetheless, it's the same thing, and people understand what I'm talking about. So I get that. Dips, were huge. I would have traded any other exercise knowing then what I know now. But I was just a teenager, so I followed what everybody else did. What are your thoughts on that exercise before I move to the other two?
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot left to be desired with that movement, and so we just have better options. So what's wrong with it? It's got a backwards resistance profile. So like you're talking about, there's not a lot of tension when your elbow's bent in the bottom position, but as soon as you extend it, remember we talked about moment arms last podcast. So if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, watch the episode that comes out tomorrow. But it gets harder as we extend our arm, and that's when your muscles naturally get weaker because there's something called cross bridges of muscle. That's how we create a contraction. They're getting so short, they have nowhere to go. So you're naturally losing force production while it's getting harder. So it's hardest in the shortened position where we're naturally getting weaker. There's not a lot of tension in that bottom position. Like you said, rear delts doing an isometric, and I will find that free weight kickbacks are just hard on people's elbows. Like elbows hurt. We've got a hell of a lot better options. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of it. It's also, and I'm going to give you, if you have to do a kickback, like in a home gym situation, I'll give you 2 ways to maybe improve it a little bit, but it's still bottom of the barrel, more for just mental variation than max hypertrophy. And it is job security if people do them with a dumbbell because it pisses off elbows. So I will say that. But it's incredibly hard to progress. Like nobody's doing strict kickbacks with heavy loads. And again, just about any tricep isolation movement is going to be vastly superior to a kickback. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this before. I think this is how I approach arm training is your heavy compound movements hit the vast majority of your tricep. So your dips, not the bench dips, but traditional dips or a dip machine, close grip benches. I'll use a pull-up assisted station and I'll add a band and I'm pressing the handle down. That's was when my elbows were really bad because I need surgery on one, but I've already had 9 surgeries. I'm not trying to get to surgery 10. And then your isolation should be long head focused, which means mostly an overhead position because the long head, because it crosses a shoulder joint, requires a different shoulder position in the other heads.
Is that because it attaches to the scapula?
Correct. Yep. So long head, just like the bicep, means it attaches to the scapula. It is a biarticular muscle because it crosses 2 joints. So you do need to have different shoulder position to emphasize both of those.
And arguably from a bodybuilding standpoint, the more long head size you have, the more impressive, really, the triceps are going to be in a front double bicep, pretty much any exercise.
Yeah, because think about it, your lateral head is getting used on any pressing, right? My shitty triceps. Your long head's what you need to isolate. Your medial head is getting worked on any sort of press down. Lateral head, any sort of pressing. So long head requires actual like emphasis and some thought. So yeah, I'll do a heavy compound movement and an isolation for the long head. Take your pick. Kickbacks.
Trash.
Yeah, they're trash. And like, I don't think they're in any of my workout programs I don't think I've programmed a kickback in 8, 9, 10 years. And that was even before I got quote unquote smart. If you have to do them, there is 2 things that we can do. And usually this is home gym situation. So let me get this ready.
Yeah, when you're kind of limited with options for variety and you want
even
a little fresh approach. Yeah.
But if you, for some reason, you love them, here's what you could do. And one is better than the other. A cable is vastly superior because of the continuous tension. It's also significantly easier on your elbows. So even if your traditional overhead dumbbell tricep extension French press is killing your elbows, a cable is better.
How much easier on results? That stabilization there.
And then your other option, not as ideal though, is adding a band for your home gym. Now, it does exasperate the problem that you have it getting even harder now in the shortened position. However, why the band does make sense a little bit is then you're going to have to fight eccentrically loading to get some sort of tension in the bottom part of the motion, right? So again, not ideal, but if you have to do them because that's all you have access to or you really love them, again, it's going to get harder in this position, but I'm having to decelerate the band from it pulling my hand back to the bottom. So cables is preferred, but if you have to, add a band. And just know though, it's still not a great movement because you want to have the muscle be challenged through one to match its strength curve, right? So the resistance profile does not match the strength profile, right? And then you also want it to be challenged through a full range of motion, so not just shortened only motions. It might be a little bit of foreshadowing there. So you want that full range of motion. So I am hardcore passing on a kickback, even adding a band. Again, you would be doing it more for just movement variation from a mental standpoint. You ain't going to get massive horseshoe triceps.
That's about the only thing I think that we can come up with as a positive for this exercise.
Correct. Yep.
Fair enough. And I'm going to throw one more at it that most people won't think of, but because I'm OCD like this, it's one side at a time. And for those who don't know, not a fan. Skip is not a fan of one side at a time unless it's 1 rep, 1 rep, 1 rep, 1 rep. I will alternate like with lunges, but I'm not going to do lunges. 15 here, rest, 15 here. Not going to do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this giant. It's a horrible, horrible Bush impersonation. But nonetheless, you're old enough, you might go, it's kind of close. Yeah, I see what he's doing, but he sucks at it. All right, number 2. I'm going to move to number 2, and that is, these are the fun ones. These are the trash. These are the really trashy ones. Dumbbell, I'm getting excited about this. Dumbbell smash press. I don't know what to say. They suck. I honestly think, and this is how the industry works sometimes. I gotta unclench my fist and I gotta settle down for a second. The industry works like this. Oh my gosh, I have to come up with something that no one else has come up with before. And, you know, I'm so brilliant in this generation behind me. There's so many things that they just didn't think of. Like, why did they not do this? We thought of it. It sucked. We may have even tried it, but even if we didn't try it, we were very quick to understand that mechanically or for whatever reason, it sucked. You're going to be hard pressed. And my generation is just as guilty. I am certain that I thought of things too at some point, or we did, that no one has thought of this before. So we're all guilty of doing that. But when you're just looking for that novel approach to come up with something new, rarely are you going to come up with, almost rarely, if ever, are you going to come up with something training that hasn't been done before. The only thing that I can think of that I thought was really innovative, that really stood out, and it's literally the one thing. There may be other things, but there's one thing I can think of. John Meadows banding a pullover. When he did that, I thought, you know what? That's the type of out of the box thinking that makes you really good at what you do, because that increased the effectiveness of that exercise 3 times. I mean, considerably is my point, but that is a rarity. So these smash, let's take the flat version, even though obviously the incline version is an option as well. But this is literally, it turns a chest press into, and I think people are using it for triceps, which is even funnier to me. This is a front delt movement. If you need a front delt movement, do incline smash press, but don't call it a tricep exercise. In fact, I'd argue this. If you want to pull this exercise out of the trash, do it upright. For shoulders, you've got a natural, like a neutral, not natural, but a neutral grip. And I love a neutral grip. I think it's great for anterior delts. Great movement versus the elbows being out. And I'm not saying that the elbows being out is bad for shoulders, but once those elbows come in, that's a lot of front delt, anterior delt specific, even though it's a complex, puzzle fitting together. There are other things working, but it's going to blast that anterior delt. But that's not why they're being used. And I don't know that I've seen them done. We get into the Arnold press and things like that, or even just a neutral grip overhead press, but not usually close grip. This has predominantly been used, and I think people have started to throw it in the trash the last few years, which I'm happy to see. But my point of bringing this up to the viewers and on the show today is, if you think that looks really good, or someone recommends that to you, just first I would say this, even though I think they suck, try it, see what it feels like. And you're going to find out very, very quickly that it just sucks. Now, if you disagree, slam me. I'm up for it. I'm good for it.
So, spoiler alert, we'll cut to the chase. I will use this in a rehab scenario.
Okay.
So,
all right.
If somebody has a shoulder issue, if somebody has a pec tear, which I treat quite a few of, this will be one of the first things we're going to do isometrics first. And then one of the first pressing motions we will do is this, because you're taking a lot of the range of motion away from the pec. So I am in an internally rotated position with my elbows in. That's going to really prioritize the front delt like you talked about. So as a pec builder, absolute trash. Now, people will say, but I feel my chest working. What you're feeling is constant isometric tension by crushing your hands together. You could, like the old school Sven press with a weight plate, even sillier, but that's why it feels it. It's as if, here's an analogy, you're putting your arm in a shortened position for your bicep, and then you're initiating a curl from here. Like, the muscle is not really experiencing a lot of lengthening and shortening. That's what we want. But that sensation of, oh, my chest is firing, you could do it just doing this. You'll get the same damn sensation.
Yep.
But, and again, it's hard to progress. Nobody's doing massive loads. You want a muscle to experiencing lengthening and shortening, and preferably a little bit more tension in the mid-lengthen to lengthen position, because there is this huge push towards stretch-mediated hypertrophy and partial lengthened positions, blah, blah, blah. We kind of talked about that a few episodes ago. But you want a muscle to experiencing lengthening and shortening under tension. So again, though, if somebody has a shoulder complaint, right, whether it's a bicep issue or a pec issue, I will use that then. But the second we could go back to a traditional pressing motion or a traditional fly, we're throwing it in the trash. The only other time I actually prescribed this was years ago when one of my training clients, she had an injury where her clavicle at this joint was literally popping out like 4 inches, right?
No.
And it had healed. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm not going to do anything that's going to put her in that wide stretch position. But like, that's so random, off the wall, 1 in 2 billion people probably,
Yeah,
because
clearly an
they
outlier.
normally do surgery, but they didn't, and it healed. You're not going to do that. Like, unless it's rehab or unless you're somebody like that, don't waste your time. You would be shocked how many patients tell me about this movement and the next movement of how, oh, well, the local IFBB pro told me I should be doing this because
Sure.
this is a finisher for my inner chest. I'm sorry, but you cannot prioritize inner versus outer. You can prioritize, and this is in my bodybuilding anatomy course, these fibers here, right, that run with my fingers, the sternoclavicular. Now, these do have a separate nerve innervation we'll talk about in the future. Then you have your middle, because they go like this, and then you have your lower, that they go like that. So you can prioritize different divisions, but it's still contracting as a whole.
Right.
And a lot of times people use terms like sternoclavicular pecs, costal pecs instead of lower pecs. You have to use the word costal. Like, that's just using big words to sound really smart. But anybody who's been doing this a long time, you can't isolate inner versus outer. Either the muscle contracts or it doesn't. And it's a false sensation of a contraction. That's why people think it's a good chest movement.
Sure. And I want to be clear, because I don't want anybody to try to bust me on this in the comment section, though they still might. There is some chest involvement. I'm not denying that there's not chest involvement. There's movement there. There has to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complex system working together. The point is the stimulus on the chest is minimal. I'd argue that the stimulus on the triceps is minimal, other than maybe the contracted position. I think this is the argument, and I don't know. I'm guessing. Someone probably looked at the close grip tricep press and went, okay, this is a variation. It's just a really crappy one because the hands are too close. It would almost be like the old school close grip. I don't know, if you're old enough to know this, but the old school close grip used to be literally almost the hands touching, which was horrible. And then we got smart and we realized, oh, okay, the close grip should be about shoulder width or just slightly inside of shoulder width, so that the arms can essentially scrape the sides as they go down. But anybody who's done a close grip bench press knows, where is a lot of that coming? It's coming from that front delt, because those elbows are tough. And I don't want to, go off on a tangent here, but I do want to touch on this because it's important for a future show. It's going to be important for us to, and I can't wait to do this because I'm huge on this, to get into a chest topic in the future, say for dumbbell presses, because of elbow position or my strong stance on tucked elbows, almost arguably benching as well, because there's powerlifting benching, of course, and then there's hypertrophy, and which one is optimal and what the nuances look like between the two. I think that's going to be a great topic too. But again, I don't want to get sidetracked right now. That may be where it came from, the close grip. That's the best that I can come up with. I just think it's a horrible. You'd be better off doing, I don't know, close grip push-ups, because there's a little bit, I don't know, even off of a step or something, a couple steps up, or setting a Smith bar low, maybe 1 notch or 2 notches up, things like that. Okay, so this brings me then to number 3, and this is my favorite of all of them. The sideways hammer strength, and I'm trying not to laugh, but I feel like I should put a dunce hat on while I'm talking about this exercise. The sideways hammer strength chest press for inner pecs. I'm not even going to say anything else. Just run with that first. Have fun with that for a second, Dr. Marv.
Yeah, literally last week a patient was like, well, I was told this is how to activate my chest. So for a chest activation, sure, but I'll give you something better. So don't do them. Yes, I know a lot of IFBB pros say they do them and they tell people. I've, within the last 2 months, had at least 4 different patients bring this movement up. So when you said, hey, this is a potential topic, I said, absolutely.
So it's still a thing. I did not even know it was still a thing.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room. First of all, we should not be getting your training advice from the vast majority of pros, because they are not human, right? Their ancestors are not the same of your and my ancestors.
Right.
Now, there are some pros who are really good at training, so I'm not saying everybody, but
Sure.
the vast majority, they were going to be yoked and way better than us no matter what they did. And two, that's not how they built their size. Even if they're doing it and for them, they feel like it's helping, what you do to maintain your size with training, nutrition, that one topic we don't talk about, right? That's not to maintain, is way different than building from scratch. So just because they do it now or they're training a certain way now doesn't mean that's what got them there when they were on the up. So poor resistance profile, right? It also takes away the lengthened position, like we talked about. So again, I'm not saying, oh my God, you only do lengthened positions like certain people do, but we want to prioritize that. It is inherently unstable because of you're not even sitting on the bench the right way. So the mantra I always say is we want high stability movements because high stability movements allow for output potential. By output, I'm talking about intensity, not powerlifting intensity percentage of a 1 rep max, but intensity in terms of how near failure are you training. So high stability equals high output potential. High output, which means you're actually training to or very near failure, leads to bigger gains with a Z, right? So we want a stable movement that allows you to push as hard as humanly possible. You do that more often than not, you will gain some muscle, right? So that's hard. It's also very hard to progress. Again, like all these other movements, and we just have so many other options. Now, if you do need a way to activate your chest, I actually have a gem, and I learned this so long ago. I think it might have even been Jeff Cavalier from Athlean X. That's how long ago, because I used to really follow him, and then I don't. But so I'm pretty sure that's who I learned it from. Let me pull it up. So this is my go-to, and then I'll even use our newbie machine in the office to help somebody, but this is how I do activations. And in fact, I forgot to show a tricep activation that is essentially looks like a kickback, but it's a little bit harder. So I will end up playing both videos right now. So activations before I bring up the video. So the idea is you do these, I have them for different body parts. Not all body parts, but most. You do these during your warm-up sets. And the goal is you're putting a muscle in its most shortened position and you're squeezing like hell for 3 to 5 seconds. And you're doing that until it almost feels like the muscle's cramping. So you have that mind to muscle connection. Then you go train that body part with your working sets. Most people will report, yes, I feel it working again. So you're getting a muscle fully shortened and you're squeezing it like hell to activate a muscle, not build a muscle.
I like that. I think that is huge. It's a huge, great, excellent cue. And I will use the back as an example. Because of the complexity of the musculature of the back, sometimes, arguably, a lot of times, most people will start out their back sessions. And if they start to make those incremental increases in poundage too quickly, they'll complain, I feel it more on one side than the other. Yeah, you're right. You do, because you haven't essentially turned on or flipped the switch on for a lot of those muscles yet. And activation, that's essentially flipping the switch and turning on the power to that muscle.
Yep.
That's a really, really good cue. Which is part of the reason, big part of the reason that I use isolation movements at the beginning of each muscle group for that reason. I want to wake them up with several lighter sets, focus on the contraction, feel it even left to right, get that blood in there even left to right, warm left to right, and then start to make the ascent, if you will, in poundage.
Absolutely. Completely agree. You're going to take a dumbbell or a kettlebell. There's two versions. The first is you're just replicating that muscle's action and you're squeezing like hell. So your pec's main job is to bring the arm across your body, aka adduction, and then it also internally rotates the shoulder. So, and I put my opposite hand on that chest so I can also feel it. And I'm going and I'm squeezing like hell. That'll get the vast majority of your pec, right? Then we have that upper pec, right? That's that upper part that a lot of people have a hard time growing, especially if you have dominant shoulders. That is a separate nerve innervation than the vast majority of your pecs. So once you're in that position, now you are going to shrug up. Now, ideally, I'm actually would be holding this a little bit longer as an activation, where you're holding that top position and you're squeezing like hell for 3 to 5 seconds. But this gives you the gist of it, right? So that is my favorite chest activation. Remember, everybody, chest is my lagging body part. It's next to my God's gift of shoulders. So I had to learn everything possible. So that will get that upper.
You only have
tricep
one
motion.
lagging part. I have like 9.
Well,
And I think there's only 8 major muscle groups. So I don't know how I have 9.
Relative to the rest of my body. Yeah. Nobody's calling me. Remember, I'm educated, not good.
Didn't pick your parents very well. I love them. I love them to death, but I didn't pick them very well.
So there we go. I forgot this was on here. See how I'm squeezing it like crazy and I'm holding it? That's what you would do. There's your lat activation. Yes, you're getting a little bit of teres, but show people real quickly. So it's just a straight arm pull down, but you're actually getting the arm behind you. And then since it is a weak internal rotator adductor, and then here is your dumbbell kickback. This is how you could use them. So I get in that position and then I bring my elbows up because remember the long head crosses the shoulder joint. So
go back to that other one real quick. I want to ask you a question because I touched on this earlier about me being OCD and I don't like to do one side at a time, especially if I'm going to activate. Could I do a cross pullover if I'm far enough away from the pulley to obviously be an adjustable pulley where the pulleys are closer together, not a cross, the typical cable cross pulley. I could cross them and do that? Or would that not be a very good angle?
It would change the angle slightly, right? But it's still fine.
Okay, let that go to where the arm or the hand comes up because I want to see where that pulley or where the angle of pull is coming from.
Yeah, so it's pretty much straight on. So that cross angle would take a little bit of that, but you're still getting it fully shortened because you need shoulder extension, a little bit of adduction, and a little bit of internal rotation.
And if I could get far enough away from the pulley, the cables were long enough. Potentially. Okay. It's something I can play with. I could see. I can check and see.
But this is how you're going to do your kickback to activate your tricep. But you're not going to do them as a max loading exercise. So so if you have a lagging body part and you want to learn how to activate, literally ask ChatGPT, what is the action of this muscle, or search online. The website I use all the time is called KenHub, and it's got really good anatomy stuff. Look at the action and then pick a movement that replicates that action. So you're in its shortened position and you squeeze like hell for 3 to 5 seconds and you keep doing that until it feels like it starts to cramp. So in the beginning, it might take 3 or 4 sets for like the chest. Now, when I demonstrate it right now, I'm already cramping, but it wasn't like that for years and years and years.
Okay. So you know what? I'm going to do this. This is not part of this isn't one of the exercises that I think that I'm going to use on the list as far as throwing in the trash. But I do want to ask you about this exercise because you touch on the high upper pec. You named it. I can't name it. And you said that it had its own nerve.
Yeah, there's a separate nerve that kind of hits this versus this part. Yep. So 2/3 is kind of here. This line up there does technically have a separate nerve that'll innervate most of that.
Okay, so that brings me to this question. What are your thoughts then on the standing cable fly where the hands start
low and go up.
Low and they come up to the chin, neck, clavicle area?
So you're kind of lining up the line of pull, right? So you want your arms in that path. I think most people go too high because I think we briefly touched on it. Your upper pec is the only part of the pec that deals with something called active insufficiency, which means when you get a muscle shortened from both sides, it gets so shortened, it can't generate a lot of force. So there's not a lot of tension on it. So that's why both the rib cage, like we talked about with the pullover thing, is like, if you have a very steep sternal angle, so the front of your rib cage is steep, think of Arnold, think of Ronnie, think of Jay, then they don't, a traditional 45-degree incline chest press is going to be a hell of a lot of upper pec. But for somebody like myself or you, where it's more vertical, a 45-degree incline barbell bench is going to be a hell of a lot of front delt. So, because we know once the shoulder gets to anywhere from 90 to about 110, 120 degrees of flexion, so this is flexion, that upper chest is starting to get active insufficiency. Most people don't have to worry about it, but if you have a lagging body part, try and stay away from active insufficiency movement. So you're only bringing it, like you said, maybe to here in the beginning, because if I go any higher, front delt's going to take over, especially if that's lagging for you. So it's an okay movement. Again, it's not a max loading, but it is like a finisher and activation. I actually am doing an experiment so long as my bum shoulder, which everybody saw me have to literally put it back into place during my chest press movement yesterday. But I'm actually going to do that movement every single chest day for 2 months straight to see if I can't build that out a little bit more. Just because I hadn't done it because the shoulder couldn't handle it. But you're not going all the way up. So people will go all the way up to eye level. Most people, that will start to let the front delt take over.
My argument for the movement is
it's a unique angle getting these fibers. Yeah, well, it's a unique angle.
Yeah, and that's my point. I agree with you as far as taking them up too high. My other hang up, though, is I think that sometimes people, or usually, people start too low. I almost feel like that, and I don't do the movement. I've tried the movement. I don't like it. It is very, very front delt dominant for me. But I almost like not starting down in here and coming up, but almost out in here so that it's coming up, and it's hard to do because I've got everything from my phone to my lights and everything else.
Okay, so you're saying you're coming from more of this angle versus this angle. Yeah, yes, because you're trying to line up with these fibers, which means me and you're going to have a different cable height because I'm broader shoulder. So think about when I'm up here, imagine drawing a line where the cable is. Try and get that cable line to be following that angle right there. Gotcha. So that's why everybody's be different. So yes, 100%. That's a great, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, most people do it. They go up way too high and they're pulling it with their elbow by their side when they actually want it slightly out, like you were discussing. 100%.
Well, and I think we're kind of limited to the pulley system that we have too.
Yes. So hopefully you have the awesome free motion that goes out and forward. Not all gyms have. Those are becoming fewer and fewer prevalent. They used to be everywhere when I first started training 17 years ago, but I think it's because it's such a big footprint to have the fully adjustable that gym, and those things are 10,000. I'm like, why is this 10 grand? Like, good God.
Well, and they're used for so many different things that if you only have one in a gym that's busy, good luck, because there are 40 different exercises that people like to do on it, including tricep press downs. It's odd to me that people will find the lightest stack possible in the gym to do tricep press down. When there's you make a good point.
You know exactly why they're doing it.
Facetious.
Look at the big rigs with the cable pulleys. Nobody uses the one with the back pad because there's only a single pulley designed for it, because it's way harder because there's less pulleys, which means it's actual true resistance.
Yeah. We used to use the lat pull down. I mean, it was a lat pull down and a tricep press down. You know, it just is what it is. That's funny. All right, fair enough. So let's do this. We'll do a quick smash or pass. I think this one is probably not only predictable to the two of us, but very predictable to the viewers as well. So I hand it off to you first. Smash or pass. If there's a smash or pass, like maybe there's a smash for one of them and not for all of them, let me know your thoughts. But go run.
So pass for the kickback unless you're doing the activation or you just mentally need variation. And then if you are, add a resistance band that's very light or add a cable. The side settle chest press, pass all day. It's super silly. The dumbbell crush press or squeeze press or whatever it is you called it, pass all day unless you're having injury or you're coming back. Then it's smash all day. Almost got that backwards. But unless you have that injury where you literally popped a pec, you have a shoulder issue, primarily a bicep issue or bicep tear or front delt issue, stay away from it. If you need an activation, I think the chest adducting shrug is 1,000,000 times better, but it would be a front delt variation. most male bodybuilders, I don't think, need more front delt because they're already getting it blasted. But my female competitors, yes, it could be valuable for that, especially in incline, because even though it's not especially if somebody has gotten breast augmentation done, especially if it's under the muscle, I don't like females doing a lot of flat or decline pressing because it actually could start to move the implant, called capsizing. But for females, an incline dumbbell crush press could be a front delt variation for them.
Fair enough. And I can't disagree with anything you said. I'm going to give my smasher pass on all three based on strictly hypertrophy getting big. There are obviously exceptions from rehab to, you know what, you just have a fitness routine and you're just doing movements and it doesn't really matter. You don't really care where it's hitting as long as you cover all your muscles with different exercises and you like the variety. More power to you. From a hypertrophy or hypertrophy standpoint, I still say it to this day. I try to catch myself and I just can't. But from a hypertrophy standpoint, all three of them, I mean, that's the reason I had the topic today. All three of them, throw them in the trash manually, slam them in there, run it to the dumpster, and don't ever revisit them again.
Said that, baby.
Completely agree.
The sweet music of love, we can no longer...
Intimate time with Dr. Marvin Skip. And we're going to follow up after the intimate time with answering a couple questions that we got in the comment section. You had a couple good ones, so we want to touch on that after the new segment of Intimate Time with Dr. Marv. What I'm going to do, and we're going to do this every show, Dr. Marv, we're going to take turns asking each other 10 questions. It sounds like, 10 questions, that's a long time. We're not going to speed through them, but, we're not going to take our time and elaborate. A couple minutes, basically. But today I'm going to throw 10 questions at you. And then next show, you can throw 10 questions at me. And what I think it'll do is it'll give a little bit of insight to the viewers who may not know who we are, a little bit of background, because these questions can't be related to the industry. That's kind of the caveat or it can't be related to bodybuilding. It can't be related to, the industry or anything. It has to be kind of personal, I guess. That's the intimate.
Yeah.
Intimate connotation.
To let everybody know, I have no idea what he's about to ask.
Right. That's the other thing. Good point. Is we are not giving each other heads up on what the questions are. That way I just figured it'd be more fun. It would be more, you can't kind of plan for it. You got to think off the top of your head. So there may be, there may be some jokes. It may be kind of funny. That's right. Oh, there's one more. There's one more stipulation. If you're asked the question, you have to provide the answer. You have to answer it.
Interesting.
So we'll have a little bit of fun with this. You ready to go? I'm not going to put a time on it.
Accurately rated like Scott McNally tries to do on over underrated, and that's one of the hard fast rules we can't.
Right.
Easy way out. Okay.
Can't get out of it. And again, there's not a time frame on it, but we'll move through them.
Try and be quick. Yeah. All right. What you got? I'm on the hot seat.
Excuse me. All right. Number one, what would you do for a career if you could no longer do what you do now? And it cannot be related to this industry in any way.
Damn.
It's OnlyFans, you liar.
Yeah, probably. I would make a hell of a lot more money. So if I wasn't doing OnlyFans, probably a counselor, because counseling helped me a ton when I was younger, and it's why I am who I am today. So I'd probably go into that field.
Very cool. Very cool. I can relate to that. I worked with kids in juvenile detention and residential in the past, but this is not about me. It's about you. Number two, you won the Powerball 3 months ago. What is your new daily driver that is now sitting in your driveway and why?
Well, if I won the Powerball, that means because I'm a car guy, even though right now I drive a Corolla. So my soul dies every time I get in it. But I always had pimped out cars my whole life. And I was like, why am I spending money on these when it's a depreciating asset? And I don't have 5 rental properties.
Because they're cool.
Yep.
They're fun.
But if I won the Powerball, because I have literally dream car for 30 to 40,000, dream car for 40 to 50. So if I won the Powerball, it means I get to do whatever I want.
Whatever you want. Money's not an issue.
1967 Jaguar E-Type Hunter Green convertible and a 1963 Aston Martin DB5 silver, aka Skyfall. Those two are my favorite, sexiest cars ever made. If I have a Powerball, that means I could drop 2 to 3 million per, because that's how much they cost.
Yeah.
Those would be now daily drivers. No. So then if I had to do a daily driver, it would either be a pimped out like Mustang Shelby, because that was the last fancy car I had, was a 99 GT. It was all murdered out before that got popular. Or a CTS V wagon, Black Diamond Edition.
Nice.
Those two are my like dream modern cars. Those would be a daily driver. Then I'm giving you way too much info, but those two cars would be that. Yep.
I like that V. Good call.
Mhm.
I like all of them. Yeah, there's class in there. I like that.
So, real quick story. At a car show, they were dumb and they gave me, at 22 years old, the keys to a CTS V sedan on public streets. It was a stick shift, and I might have hit 120 miles an hour on a 35-mile-an-hour road.
Oh, yeah.
And promptly got asked to exit the vehicle, but it was worth it.
It was worth it. Here's the keys. That's all I wanted to do. No problem. You can have them back now.
Yep.
All right, number 3. Who's currently your favorite comedian?
Bill Burr.
Nice.
And I actually started watching his newest stand-up today. It is on my bucket list. We are going to see Tom Segura here in Houston in a few weeks.
Nice.
He's up there, but Bill Burr is my all-time favorite.
All right.
All time.
Number 4, what genre of music is playing in your car? Could be your daily driver. It could be your CTS-V, or it could be your Corolla while you're driving.
I always put my songs on shuffle, so it's random, but my favorite genre is reggae rock, if not classic rock.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Number 5, cats or dogs, and be specific to which breed.
So I had cats my whole life with one dog, but my dog was a Basenji lab mix. Her name was Jenny. She's perfect size. Their purebreds are Egyptian sheep herding dogs, and they're mute. So they're famous for having a curly tail, and purebreds are mute. So when she barked, it sounded like she would go through puberty. Wicked smart, wicked fast. I think I would be dog now versus cat.
Fair enough.
It's funny. My wife and I were talking about it this morning. We would love to have an animal, but we work too much. It wouldn't be fair for the animal to be cooped up indoors 10 hours a day.
Yeah, and I think that's a responsible way to look at it.
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Number 6, your wife/girlfriend, could be both. I mean, some people have a wife and a girlfriend, sits you down and tells you that she just realized after all these years that she's bisexual. Are you pissed or really happy?
Oh, God, she's going to be pissed at my answer because I'm going to be really happy. And she is very against that.
That's a high five. Yeah.
She's very against that. Yeah. I mean, I should qualify. We're very accepting if that's you, fine. But that was, just so you know, we are never doing that. And I was like, okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
She made that very, very clear.
Yes.
You never know. A few drinks. And anyway, number 7. You can pick only one food for the rest of your life that has 0 calories. What is it?
Oh, so it's a sugar.
It can be anything. Any food at all.
That's 0 calories.
0 calories.
So it has to be 0 calories, or the calories don't count.
No, no matter what the food is, like it could be French toast, whatever food you choose, and you can eat it for the rest of your life, and it automatically just now has, because you chose it, 0 calories.
So then a burger.
Fair enough. I like that.
Yeah.
I can't say I wouldn't say the same thing.
Yeah.
Number 8, dream vacation destination, whether you can afford it or not.
We are looking at either Costa Rica or Croatia for our honeymoon for next year. I call her my wife just because we've been together for so long, but we're technically not married. Those are 2 exit strategy countries to move to once we leave the United States.
I thought you meant not calling her your wife was an exit strategy. I'm like, bro, she could hear this. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, we'll find out if she listens because of that other question too. But those are up there for me.
Fair enough. Number 9, are you chill when you drive, or are you an aggressive dickhead like my wife?
Very chill.
So am I. I think that's why I get so mad at her. I always tell her, you're going to get me in a fight. So you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
You don't get to point at people and flip them off, because they're not going to want to get out of the car and fight you. And I don't have a problem fighting, even in my old age. I don't want to, because it hurts your hands, that sort of thing. It's hard to hold a bar after you punch someone in the face.
Well, here in Texas, you have to be careful about people shooting you with road rage. It happens at least once a week. Somebody gets shot over road rage. So
Absolutely.
One of the rules when she first moved here is you got to stop flipping people off when you drive.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. 100%. If I get my ass beat, I always tell this, if I get my ass beat or I get shot because of something I did, that's completely different.
Yeah.
If I get shot or my ass beat because you couldn't keep your mouth shut from riding shotgun with me, that is not acceptable.
Yep.
Number 10, if you died tomorrow, what is the one thing you would hope people said about you?
That I helped a bunch of people and put them before myself.
Well, that is far different than what I'd say, because I'm pretty much a narcissistic voluptuary. So we'll close with that. Not close, but we'll close that segment. Our first edition of Intimate Time with Dr. Marv and Skip. I like it. I think it's might be more fun asking the questions than because I even learned. I mean, I learned some things about you. You said cats. I'm like, oh, he's a cat guy too. Oh, he chose dog. Chose the dog. But I get it. That's cool. And I'm not anti-dog. I had a toy Chihuahua, 3.5 pounds. His name was Mufasa.
That's a glorified rat. That's not a dog.
He was a cat that barked.
Yeah, there we go.
Basically, he was smaller than the cats that I have. All right. So again, we're going to segue again into the questions for the comments. I think you have 2 from the comment section, right?
Yeah, so I pulled 2 comments and then somebody asked a question. So we're not going to do a deep dive like it's the week's posit, but to show you that not only does commenting now get you in a raffle to start winning stuff starting next month in April, but we're actually going to bring them up. So comment your experience with something, your opinion. Did you try something that we brought up? Did you feel like it was helpful? Tell me if I'm a moron and the cues I gave you didn't work for you. Remember, everybody's an N of 1, but that's the whole point of this. So
I want you to keep saying that too. I want you to keep using that because I like that. I like it. The N of 1. I just think that's a good, it's a good cue, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. So from blood flow restriction, 241 Novi said, 47 years old. Been doing this since 1991. My left knee is loaded with spurs and all ligaments are deteriorating, and I have a bipartite kneecap. Just means his kneecap is in 2 parts. It's just a incidental finding. Surgeon told me I needed a knee replacement is on the way, but not at 47. Blood flow restriction saved me. Stumbled upon it in 2015. Great stuff, guys. So I completely agree. Doctor hat being on, just know that degenerative joint disease is gray hair of bones. Nobody over the age of 40 has a clean knee MRI. Hell, probably nobody at the age of 30 has a clean knee MRI. So imaging is only a piece of the puzzle. So don't let anybody use that as a sales tactic. If there is osteoarthritis, that's just gray hair of bone. Everybody's going to have it at some point. If you've had trauma or you live life on your terms, it might happen sooner than the other people, but nobody's getting through this life with clean imaging. Osteoarthritis is an inflammatory condition, right? You know, it is so when we have pain with an arthritic joint, it's because inflammation has been currently picked up. You know what's anti-inflammatory? Exercise.
Yep.
So the single best thing for an arthritic degenerated joint is motion, and blood flow restriction definitely seems to help that even more, because like we talked about, not only is it decreasing pain just from a mechanistic standpoint, a ton of blood, especially in ligaments and tendons that we don't have great blood supply, a ton of synovial fluid is being released into the knee. So, and one last thing, and I know I'm doing a lot of doctor speak, but just it shows to highlight the importance of this. The end of last year, a study came out where they gave the best orthopedic surgeons in the world a shoulder MRI alone. No information, no history, no exam. They had a 51% chance, i.e. a flip of the coin, of correctly identifying if somebody had pain based on MRIs alone. So an imaging is a piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole puzzle. I'll have somebody with an MRI where I'm like, how the hell are you even breathing?
Right.
There's no pain. I'll have somebody with an MRI that is pristine and they're crying in agony. So imaging is a piece of the puzzle. Blood flow restriction is amazing for degenerative arthritic joints. Obviously, you need to be cleared by a medical professional, but I love the fact that he's been doing that and his knees are doing better. I can't think of, it's probably one of the best things you could do for an arthritic joint, so long as there's not other contraindications.
You know, it's funny that you say that. I just want to touch on this real quick. If I had it to do over again, knowing now what I know about BFR and the I don't want to see the advancements in it, but the advanced understanding of it and the fact that it is so much more effective. And I looked at it as a novel approach that wasn't very effective. I didn't know very much about it. Had I had my knee injury that took almost 2.5 years to recover from again, or if I had that BFR knowledge, I would have used that. And I can almost say with quite a bit of certainty that I could have sped up the process, because what did work was trying to get as much blood in there as I could without continuing to inflame and irritate that it's essentially what? Bone inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very,
Yeah.
it can be very, very painful. It was not fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love blood restriction. One more comment. This is from Chris9390. I've recently started BFR training and I love it. The pain is excruciating in a good way. Yes, I joke. It is the most terribly awesome thing to do. I could barely train triceps a few months ago due to elbow pain, and the episode on Think Big turned me on to the idea. My elbows are miles improved. Great info. So same deal. For 4 years, the only direct arm training I could do was blood flow restriction because my elbows were really pissed off. And that's when I was currently in chiro school. So I hadn't quite learned how to figure it out. I could not do any sort of heavy arm training for 4 years. All I could do was blood flow restrict and then just try and tell myself, just get through this rest pause on a chest press machine and just deal with it because the elbow's going to kill me. So stoked about that. And if you've never tried BFR, it is incredibly hard. It is not easy. I do not show it to every patient they're a candidate for because not everybody can handle it.
Fair enough.
And then a very, very quick question for today by Rowan Ranger. What about barbell hack squats for a topic? I've moved almost all of my training to the house now for convenience reasons. I've rigged up cables to match most machines, aside from the strength curve, obviously. But isolating the quads has been an issue. I'm experimenting with the barbell hack squat after maxing out the landmine I was using to do hack squats with that. So I have some thoughts on this, but I'd be curious about yours. But I'm also going to show him what I think is vastly superior, even though I will program barbell hack squats, even though on paper they might not be the best thing. So that's me kind of going against what the research says or what people will say, just because, remember, personal preference. I like it, and I'll explain why I like it and why I do it. But I want to hear your thoughts on that first.
The barbell hack squat.
Yep.
Not a fan. I know that's, I'll tell you what, you tell me what you think. I'll piggyback off of it, but it's not, I look at it this way again. I'm trying to simplify this and just be transparent. There's so much equipment out there that I find to be so efficient and so optimal these days. Now, if you took me back to the 80s and you put me in the YMCA gym that I started at when I was, in my teens, that would have been something that I probably would have played around with. But these days, I mean, I can run up to raw. The other thing too is because of my knee and glute issues, it is programmed in my brain that I have specific exercises that work. I don't have the variety with leg training that I used to. And in part out of fear, to be honest, and it may be unfounded because my knees are actually great now. But I don't want to get away from those things. I just stick with the exercises that I'm confident in, because then I can go in and I can go 100% balls out and not have to worry about, gee, is this going to cause a problem? So I wouldn't go experimenting with too much myself these days. So you go ahead and take it, or, run with it a little bit. But that's kind of my position on it. Not saying it's a bad exercise. I'm saying I don't want to run with it.
So it has a lot of the limitations of the exercises we discussed originally, right? It's hard to progress. It can be compared to a more traditional squat, right? Stability is going to be hard. Ankle mobility requirements go through the roof. So I will say, if you are doing this, make sure you're elevating your heels. The bar isn't on your back, but it does require a hell of a lot of spinal extension to do it. So if you don't have the best hip mobility, the best low back mobility or control, it's going to be hard. But I do it because, thanks to a cut happy surgeon who did 7 surgeries by the time I was 18, 6 of them were done unnecessarily or done wrong.
Ooh.
So I have no meniscus in my left knee that he took out in the 8th grade. So heavy leg extensions, I cannot do. I can't do old school sissy squats. I can't do heavy leg extensions. So I have to find movements that are almost act as if it's an isolatory movement. Now, you don't technically need that. A squat's still going to do it. But when I'm doing, say, Dr. Scott Stevenson's fortitude training, he's big on the whole zigzag method on leg day. I like it. It makes a lot of sense to me. So I'll program them in, but it's with the caveat of, well, I can't do heavy leg extensions. Now, I will, though, still put 225, 275 on a bar and rep out 20 reps of barbell hack squats. And your quads are definitely full of blood, because think about what we talked about, the episode that comes out tomorrow, the squat episode, where the bar is in the knee. That's a long distance, so it's very knee dominant. But again, normally my low back is giving out, or my grip, because it's just a weird position, is giving out before the quads.
Sure.
However, BFR sandbag hack squats when you're on vacation, I could think of very few worse things to do. So I will show that in a sec. Fucking hell. I mean, good God. I pride myself in how much pain I could take in the gym. And I don't think I've successfully done 30, 15, 15, 15 reps continuous. Like the protocol, I think I've had to stop and shake out legs and then finish that round. But a substitute that I think is even better, and it's great for home gyms, is a somersault squat from Joe Daniels. I'm 98% sure. Swing This Kettlebell on Instagram. I learned them from Dr. Scott, who learned them from Joe, so I will give him credit. I used to do it on a Smith machine, and now I do dumbbells or kettlebells. So it's great for a leg extension substitute. It's brutal. Oh my God, it's brutal. It's great for home gyms. I could load up my knee that way, but I can't do a leg extension.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts before I show that, or just the BFR sandbag, or
Nope,
you
go
on
for
the
it.
same page with me? Okay.
Yeah, on the same page. Yep.
Yeah, I figured. This is me in Tennessee. We drove there. So BFR cuffs are on, sandbags behind my legs. I am using the little lip of the garage. So for the guy working at home, if you don't have a squat wedge, you could just use that little lip on your garage for heel elevation. And it is murder. But here's what I think is better. You could do this with a kettlebell, a barbell. This is a 120-pound dumbbell, and it will smoke you. I like heel elevation, so I could drive the knee forward, but this is a somersault squat. The key is your hand is super high up with the weight, like up in your groin, and you're pivoting through your knee, right? So think about your hip is pretty much the same flexion the whole way through. So it is kind of like a weird way to isolate the knee, the opposite of a leg extension. But these are absolute murder. My favorite back-to-back pairing when I superset these is these, and I immediately do a traditional hack squat. And your quads are destroyed, like shaking. Only 3 or maybe 4 plates on a hack squat machine versus 5 or 6. It's awesome. I think that's vastly superior. Not a lot of people know about them. I did buy a handle that I could change to use for a dumbbell to turn into a kettlebell, but then it's plastic. And then I didn't realize till after it that it's only rated for 100 pounds. And now I'm doing the 120-pound dumbbell, and I don't want that to break.
Right.
So now I just hold the dumbbell. Is it as optimal as a kettlebell? Slightly no, but I also don't want to spend $1,000 on a 120-pound kettlebell for the gym. Like, I'll buy stuff for the gym, but not that. So I think a somersault squat vastly underrated and really, really hard that not a lot of people do.
Let me ask you this: I don't know if you did this at any point in the past, but we used to do chins where we would put a dumbbell in our weight belt, so strap it in versus having to hold it.
Well, but you're going to want the weight near your hips because of moment arms and loading the quad that way. So you're still going to want the weight as high up to you. So if you could find a way to make it super short to where it's helping you hold it,
Well, it would be in your lifting belt.
That's a possibility. Most lifting belts that I see, you're not using like a dip belt. You're using an actual weight
your
lifting
actual
belt.
lifting belt. Yeah. Yeah.
That,
We used to do that for
interesting.
chins. And that way you just set the dumbbell, lengthwise up and down, and then you come up and you strap around it. So it's pretty tight. It won't go anywhere
I don't know if I feel like the dumbbell would get in the way of full depth.
Okay. And it might in that. That's what I wondered. Yeah. But in looking at while you're holding it, I'm like, I don't know, it might work.
So that's something. Sure. So here's a perfect example. Listeners, try what Skip did. And then if he's a moron, come on and tell us. Right. If he's a genius, come on and tell us. Right. But yeah, we could have people do that. But yeah. So I think somersault squat's vastly underrated. Hack squat, yes, when you're at a home gym, it's something. And I totally get it. Also, reverse Nordics is a great home gym option as well for quads. So, or the old school sissy squats if your knees can handle it.
walking lunges up and down the road so that all your
Yep.
neighbors can be like, that meathead's out there again. Especially the guys. It'll be the fat, dumpy
Yep.
guys who'll be like, yeah, that guy's out again. And the wives are like, yeah, I know. I don't know. Just leave him alone. He seems to be doing just fine out there. Why are you giving him such a hard time? All right. On that note, I'm going to take us out, Dr. Marv.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't mind. I have to reach because I moved my roadcaster here. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. It should sound a little something like this. And if you didn't like the show, just pretend you did and like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell anyway. What the hell? We want to hear your questions and your feedback about the show in the comment section. We get some good questions. We'll answer them during the show, just like we did today. If you have a topic or specific exercise you'd like us to discuss, let us know. Be sure to use the TrueNutrition.com link to save 10% now on not just Team Skip protein, but every supplement they sell. Not only do I use my Team Skip protein with my clients, but other top prep guys have their clients use my protein as well. It's that good. Dr. Marv, how can people reach out to you with questions or if they want to hire you?
Yep. So my chiropractic office is in Seabrook, Texas, which is Houston Bay area, but I also do telemedicine for all of Texas and nutrition coaching for all of Texas. In terms of the Educated Meathead, you can go to theeducatedmeathead.com. On Instagram, I'm most active on my personal page at dr.marvin.saysdc. You'll find a ton of promo codes there. Info about the online course, seminars. I am doing a paid seminar that will be a turn into my second course with Logan Varner. Everything I've ever learned the last 17 years about prepping for squats. So stay tuned for that. I might make the recording available to be purchased because it is a paid event, but we'll figure that out. But dr.marvin.saysdc. I'm most active on Instagram.
Sounds good. If you have too much skin, go to teamskip.com. You'll find all my contact information there, including Team Skip merch. Today we're wearing pink. Of course, you can follow me on IG at Intense Muscle as well. Join us again next week for another episode of Between Two Dumbbells.
Between Two Dumbbells is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered medical, fitness, or nutritional advice.